freaking first cut. Golly.
What's up, YouTube? Big day in the world of golf. Everything from the ladies to the old men, and we're going to cover it all. Hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. We'll jump into it right now. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and we are talking lots of different tours today. Joining me to do just that, Greg DuCharme is here. Greg, good to see you.
A lot of tours going on today. This was quite a day in the game of golf. The Travelers was a very interesting tournament for so many reasons. Congrats to In Gee Chun on her big win, and Patrick Cantlay closing the deal. It was big time day.
Big time day. Mark Immelman, fresh off of TPC River Highlands. Good to have you, Mark.
It's good to be here. It was an eventful afternoon, I guess. Still flabbergasted at what Sahith did on the last hole, but that's for a later conversation.
That is one of the talking points for this evening. Kyle Porter is here. KP, nice haircut.
Thank you. It was a really fun, wide-ranging day of golf. You know, I think a lot of times we are very rightfully focused on the PGA Tour, and we could almost talk about everything but the PGA Tour today. We're not going to, but we could and fill up an entire hour. So I'm excited about the conversation today.
And with all of that, there was an entry that had Xander Schauffele in the one and done, Mark, and I can tell you it's nobody here in this video call right now.
Was it Coach? Who was it?
It was the fans, man. Yeah.
I'll
tell you what, and they are loaded coming into the stretch run here too, because they didn't use players in the fall. So all of a sudden, 3 million behind doesn't seem that big if you're me. But we'll wait till next week.
Well, we'll also cover all of that. Let's start with the ladies. Oh my gosh. I found myself ditching the PGA Tour while this thing was closing out here, Greg, because the battle between In Gee Chun trying to go wire to wire in one of the most fascinating ways, watching Lexi Thompson trying to get into the clubhouse. This was compelling throughout.
Yes, it really was. And In Gee was so impressive, even though in a strange way, she shot 75-75 over the weekend, which made it quite interesting and made it a very worthy conversation. But I was so impressed with what she did off the tee. I mean, she missed 6 fairways for the whole week. It was just it's incredible. For her greens of regulation, she hit 12 or more greens every day. It was just a marvelous stuff, and it cooled off a little bit on the weekend for her, but it brought a lot of other competitors into play, including Lexi, and that definitely made it much more interesting.
The real quick, Rick, I want to jump in here. She shot 64 on Thursday, right, and gained, I don't have it in front of me.
It looks like a typo.
I think it was 11.5 strokes on the field, which is not like a great round for the year. That's like that might be one of the great rounds in not only women's, but just golf history.
Correct.
I mean, 11.5. I wish I had the exact number.
Historically, Ken Duke's round at the Players was like 10 or 11. Sebastian Munoz had a 10er earlier this year, but it is few and far between when you start getting into double digits.
Okay, so it was 11.38, which was almost 2 strokes better than the next best women's PGA championship round over the last 10 years. Nelly had 9.5 in 2021. It was a 63. 11.38 is almost unfathomable. I don't know that I've ever seen a number that high, Rick.
Yeah, no, it's unheard of. I could fiddle through the database, but it doesn't happen often.
And what that allowed her to do, and you see this tweet here if you're watching on YouTube, somebody pointed this out to me. She shot 64, 69, 75, 75 to win her third major. If you flip those around, 75, 75, 69, 64, she would have missed the cut. And it was such a weird, I think sometimes we think about players building toward major wins, like throughout a week. So you progressively get better and better and better and better. And this was the exact opposite of that. She progressively got worse. And yet, because of the historic nature of that first round, she gave herself so much breathing room to go win it on Sunday. she got it a little gifted to her, I think, by the way Lexi played, which we can talk about in a minute. But she still shot 64, and that was, again, almost 11 and a half strokes better than the field on Thursday, which ultimately delivered her third major.
We will indeed talk about Lexi Thompson, but Mark, a third major championship, no matter whether it's the men's game or the ladies, starts to put you in some rarefied air, and that's exactly what In Gee has done on this Sunday.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of her. I didn't get to watch much over the weekend because of what I was up to, but I did watch some on Thursday and Friday, and it was compelling stuff because, Congressional is no pushover, and the conditions were difficult. And with the upgrades to the golf course, with future men's major championships, and I believe a Ryder Cup in store there at the Blue Course, it's just two hands full, that place. And to put together that first round, Kyle highlighted, was just a mammoth effort. And then to back that up with another good one on round two was impressive. And you could see some of the cracks were showing, but I was just so proud of her because she'd acknowledged the fact that she had been struggling with nerves, and it had really become a thing. And so much so that she brought her old caddy back on the bag, and she was seeing someone to help deal with the pressure of it all. And it speaks to how human golf is. And then golfers that do stuff like this, and athletes that do things like this, we sort of expect them to do that sort of stuff all the time. But they're just like you and I. They're very, very talented, obviously. And they deal with the similar sort of demons that we do. So, whereas I was sort of, I won't say pulling for Lexi, but I was excited she was in contention. I was happy for In Gee to pull this thing off because in as much as what winning is incredible, I think if she had spilled it at the post, that would have left a horrid scar. So in many respects, she's now in some rarefied air, and I'm just happy for her that she closed the thing out in the end.
Speaking of spilling it at the post, Lexi.
Yeah.
It's a tough scene.
Stop me if you've heard this before. Lexi Thompson struggles with short putts down the stretch. She bogeys 3 of her last 4 to finish 1 shot behind In Gee, tied for second with Minjee Lee at 4 under par. KP, you segue into us. Why don't you just start us with the Lexi?
Well, it's just I mean, you pick your analogy. I said Rick Ankiel. Other people have said Chuck Knobloch. So the putting is one thing, right? These 4-footers, 3-footers. I mean, she had a tap in on 18, and I cringed as she was stepping up to it. It was 8 inches. That's the point that we're at, where I'm like, I think she could miss this. She didn't, thankfully. But so forget the putts. The hole that sticks out to me was the 16th, the par 5. Mm-hmm. She's greenside in 2. She's flushing it. Her swing is not, one that I would want my kids to emulate. It's not one that you love to look at, but she's flushing the hell out of it. She's hitting it great. So she's greenside in 2. She hits a chip. I don't know if you saw this, Greg. She hits a chip that looked like sometimes when I play, I do this thing where I'm coming on my downswing when I'm chipping, I'm freaking out in my head. Don't blade it, don't fat, all just 900 things that I'm thinking about. And what I end up doing is exactly what she did, where you have this, you take this panic, scoopy whack at it, and you hit it 3 times as far as you intended to, and you go get it, and you basically just throw your wedge away because you can't do that again, right? You can't pull that out again. Yeah. And so she putts it, and she motors it 15 feet past and leaves herself 15 feet for par on a par 5 where she was greenside in 2. And that, to me, it's emblematic of what she's feeling, because it's not, if it was just the putter, you'd be like, okay, well, she's got a putting problem. She has a nerves problem, right? It's not just with a putter in her hands. It's any tight, short, whatever shot. And that it was just, it felt like how I feel, when I was watching it, it looked like how I feel playing, right? As a 12 handicap who's terrible at golf. And it's just hard to watch somebody that is that good, that's put that much work in, that's that good of a ball striker just kick away another major championship like that.
It's
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg, if I may, and I'll let you have it. It's back to that the humanism of it all. It's what golf at the highest level is incredible, and it can show you up so quickly. And when you get to that place that Kyle was highlighting, you just feel so alone, and everything starts going so fast, and there's just nowhere to hide. You can't sub somebody in. You can't bring in a teammate. Maybe you can on the LIV tour one day, but you can't sub someone in for you, and you just got to be there. And this golf, it's such an incredible game, and it'll take you to the highest of highs and then the lowest of lows in the space of 4 hours, and that's what makes it so compelling. And to watch a golfer have to navigate that place is ugly to watch, Greg.
There's no easy way to get it done. And what always seems to happen is in the game of golf, under the highest amount of pressure, your weaknesses are they're put on display, and you're on a stage and you end up walking across a tightrope, and there's 3 options. You can go for it and you can make it, and then you win and it's great. Or the other option is you go for it and you fail and you fall off, or you try to play the safe route and you still fall off and fail. And so that's the really hard thing, is you have to have the go for it mindset. But ultimately, if you have a weakness, the way Lexi does, and she showed this before, this happened at the Olympic Club. Was it last year, 2 years ago? It was the same kind of shot, yeah. Right? Those touchy feely, difficult shots in a high level of a major championship. And under pressure, that area, your touch, is tested the most. And unfortunately, that's the area of weakness for her. And then this is what you end up getting. But to make 4 bogeys on the back 9 of a major, when you're playing as well as she is, when you hit it as well as she does, it's even more disappointing. And this is going to be a tough one to swallow, because she should have won this tournament.
Well, it's what's weird, Greg, is the woman who went out in 40 on Sunday and shot 75-75 was not the one who was considered the player that kicked away the tournament. Right. I mean, it was just like the whole thing was it was like the entire tournament was very much a roller coaster, because it looked like In Gee was going to win by 15 on Friday night, and then she goes 75-75 and shoots 40 on the front 9 on Sunday, and then Lexi gives it back. I don't know. The whole thing, it actually would have been kind of fitting if Minjee Lee would have emerged as the winner to win, her second straight women's major, but she didn't. And yeah, it was a crazy ending.
There is a comment here from JetBlue Amigo that says, is Lexi the Will Zalatoris of the LPGA? And Mark, if you're talking about frequency of yellow squares on your Wikipedia page, the answer might be yes. Do we have that, Jacob? There you go. That's a lot of yellow squares. Unfortunately, not as many green squares as Lexi would like. And by the way, she's played in about 1 million majors.
Well, remember, she played her first when she was like 12 or whatever it was. How old was she?
14.
Yeah, my goodness gracious. I mean, look, I've been fortunate to spend some time around her, and I don't want to use the term starstruck, but when I saw her the first time and when I met her, I was a little starstruck, because she's just got this aura about her, and she's charming, and she's obviously athletic, and to live your life in the spotlight like she has, and when she was so tender and so young, and then she had the wrangle with the LPGA that she did when she was too young to be a member, I believe it was, and then there was all that stuff she had to go through, and through it all just kept her head high and kept playing, and she's put herself in contention more often than not. And yes, would she have wanted more? But I'm here to tell you, and maybe I'm going to throw water on the argument, but winning just one of these things is incredible. And yes, maybe she's messed up a few, and she'll rue those sorts of things, but at least she's got one on the resume. And then to build on that, she's still energetic and working towards it, because sometimes when you get burned so much, you can sort of lose the interest, and then just sort of go, whatever, do I have to really do this stuff anymore? But she's still working hard. If you watch her in the gym, she's an animal in there, and she's working hard on her game. And she mentioned to me she's been really logging time on the putting green and around the putting greens, because she's identified that is an area that doesn't work. So she's still got the desire, which is cool. I'm hope she's able to rebound from this one again, because there have been so many.
Two things on Lexi real quick. One, I don't doubt that she works hard. I think you can't perform like that without working hard. She also, though, doesn't seem to necessarily enjoy golf that much. Like, this is very much like outsider looking in, just observing her. She just, I don't know if it's, I don't watch Lexi on a week-to-week basis, but there seems to be a little bit of a lack of joy there. And maybe that's because she's in her head at major championships and is like, freaking out on the inside. And those are the times that I see her the most. And then two, I'm curious about what everybody else thinks. More majors over the course of their career between her and Zalatoris. Who wins more?
I don't know which league is stronger. I mean, the LPGA is just so deep, and some of these Korean girls are superstars. So, shucks, I'd give it. My argument, I'd give it to Will, just because he's younger. He's got more golf injury-free in front of him. But I do want to say this, Kyle, and about the joy. I'll go to a colleague of mine, Nick Felder, because he jokes about the fact that sometimes before we go on a broadcast for a major championship, a lot of us and the executives sort of say to us, well, just go out there and loosen up and have fun. And Nick would go, how the heck do you have fun? He goes, man, we're under pressure. This is hard. We try to do our best. And then he'll tell a story about when he's played. Like, we went to dinner last night and he shared some incredible stories about, winning big events and the grind thereof. And he goes, yeah, it's fun afterwards. But while you're on the golf course, it's not that fun. You are like nose to the grindstone trying to survive and outdo your competition. So maybe there's some of that in there, and maybe she could flash a smile once in a while. But when you're a little bit in your head, like she might be when she's scared of some short game shot, it's going to be hard to smile. I don't care who you are.
I don't know how much younger Zalatoris is than Lexi, by the way.
Yeah.
Although I would say he has a lot more, like, just because of the age arc of the men's game compared to the women's. He probably has, I think, and this is to your point, he has a lot more years left.
Yeah.
Well, Lexi might be like 28 or 9 or whatever, but she's got a lot of miles on the tires,
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we're gonna move on here, but to put a bow on this, KP, you asked. I ran the last 8 years, 265,000 rounds worldwide. So that's PGA, Euro, Korn Ferry, Champions Tour. Ken Duke had a 10.59. That was his round. Okay. I've got one better than In Gee's. It's a 12.05.
And so before you tell me who it is and where, I want to point out that she did hers in a major championship.
This was not at a major championship. Any guesses? We could make some guesses here.
Sung Kang at Pebble.
That is not a bad guess. That was a.
Oh, was it Furyx? Not
That's
the
what I was
58.
going to guess.
The
Economic Arms.
Yeah.
That is a 10.66, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about that's probably not it. I was going to say JT at Sony. What about Xander's 61 at Century Tournament of Champions?
You know what? No, that's not it. I'm actually questioning. I'm actually questioning whether this is actually right or not. I'm going to have to look into it. So here's So Greg, I thought you might sniff this one out. It was Adam Hadwin's 59. However,
but different courses though.
Yeah, that might be looking at all 3 courses for the day and not just what he played La Quinta.
Yeah,
he played La Quinta. Yep.
So there might not be a 12 out there. I'd have to go back and rerun the numbers, but the way the tour sends me the data, that could be just the scoring average for all 3 scores all day, all 3 courses all day.
12 better than the field, or 11.5 better than the field average at a major. Mm-hmm. This sounds like hyperbole. It has to be one of the 10 best rounds in women's golf history.
Oh, easily. I don't think it's that close, honestly. It's like the top 3.
It's insane. It's an astounding number.
All right, gents, we got to talk about the PGA Tour. We got to talk about Xander. We got to talk about Cantlay. We got to talk about everything else. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Travelers Championship was not decided by a playoff, Mark. I don't know if you knew this. I'm sure you did. 75% of the Travelers Championships have been decided by a playoff or a single stroke. This one was part of the 25%. Neither one of those things.
Yeah, thanks, sweet Jesus. That one last year, that went on forever. And I remember, the one thing I remember about it, just besides the saves these guys were making to stay alive, was afterwards when we got back to the hotel, there was nothing open. You couldn't find food anywhere because it was like in the middle of the night over here. So it was nice to get this one done in regulation. It was sad that it finished the way it did because it was shaping up to be quite exciting. I would have loved to have seen, I don't know, maybe Sahith make a par on the last and force Xander to make birdie or whatever. But anyhow, it is what it is, and that's golf. And I guess that's a follow-on from the ladies' conversation we've just had. Stuff happens, and stuff happens fast when things are going wrong.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that 18th hole from Tagala, but Xander Schauffele goes out and wins 19 under par thanks to a Sunday 68, and this continues to add to the very bizarre resume, Greg, that is Xander Schauffele's, but he has now finally tacked on another individual stroke play, full field cut event to the resume. He's on a roll. I feel like he needed this one, or maybe I just think he needed this one.
Well, I mean, it's easy to see it coming in a way. He's been playing some really good golf of late. Since the Zurich Classic, you're looking at every finish for him has been inside the top, between 18 and 12, right? Yeah, every single one since then. Tied 5th, 13th, tied 18th, 14th last week at the Open. He's been gaining strokes across the board. It's been quietly very solid play. And so there's no surprise to see another one come at the end of this. But I think this was a really big step. And I know, Kyle, we've talked about this a lot in the past. It's like he took that step today where he takes a 36-hole lead, takes a 54-hole lead and seals the deal and gets it done. It maybe wasn't as smooth as he would have liked, but he held on and it was down one at one point late to the gala, which was, you kind of felt like it was all going to fall apart, but he ends up getting the job done. And I think it's a big step for him.
Technically, Kyle, 6th PGA Tour victory. That does not include shadow leaderboard at the Tour Championship. It obviously doesn't include his Olympics victory, but 6 real life PGA Tour sanctioned victories is how they count these for Xander.
Do you guys know how many, you might know this, Rick, how many times coming into today, how many other times he had led a PGA Tour non-shadow leaderboard going into the final round?
I do know the answer to that, I think.
What is it?
I think it was 5.
It was 5.
Yeah.
And he won
I think
none
he was,
of those.
I think it was 0 for 5, right? Yeah.
But so I think my point in that is he actually, so Data Golf has this really cool tool called the pressure tool, which I'm sure you guys have used before, but pressure. His play on Sundays when he goes in with a lead is actually not that bad. It's kind of below what is expected based on their model, but there's a lot of guys that are below what is expected. Rory is well below what is expected. Spieth is well below what is expected. What's different about those guys is they start to rack up 54-hole leads. And so you just, like, when you put yourself in that position after 54 holes, you kind of stumble into some wins. I think Xander actually, sometimes, and I've probably been guilty of this, we think about him as, can't close, allergic to the lead, but we only think about it in terms of the final round. I always go back to the last year's Masters when he gets near the lead on 16, just hits a horrible shot on 16 into the water. And you're like, Xander does it again. Yeah, here's the tool that I'm talking about. But I actually think his issue has been not getting in, like, for as good as he's been statistically and as consistently as he's played, he hasn't really led after 54 holes as many times as I would have thought. So I think the criticism of him would actually be more early in tournaments, those first 54 holes, putting himself into position. Because if I just look at these numbers, this data, it's very difficult to criticize the way he's played on Sundays when he goes in first or tied for first. And I think that's something that I've maybe evolved on just after looking at some of these numbers over the last couple of days.
And just to add real quick to that, Kyle, if you look at his scoring average ranks on tour, he's third in round 4 scoring average.
Yeah.
121st in round 2 scoring average.
Yeah. So which
is interesting.
He always, and this is, I think we think about what's the one that he won from behind 20, was it
19th century?
He
beat Gary
Woodland.
He beat Gary Woodland. We think about him in terms of like, that's sort of emblematic of his career, right? Where it's like, he's not that, he's good over 54 holes, but he doesn't put himself in that 54 hole leader position enough. And it was good to see him. It's hard not to win at least a couple of times if you're constantly in the 54 hole leader position, unless you just are a complete choker and kick away everything. And I don't think that's true of Xander. And so it was good to see him kind of take advantage of that 54 hole position this week. And I'd like to see him do it more in the future, because I think the talent is immense enough to have that expectation. Jacob pulled up the scoring average ranks here: 44th after in the first round, 121st in the second round, 6th in the third round, 3rd in the fourth round. If you're better in the first 2 rounds, you don't have to be great on Sundays to just stumble into a couple of wins, right? Because the things that happen on Sundays are you can control them more when you're the leader going into the final round, rather than having to shoot 60, 61, 62 to win the tournament.
Okay. I have to.
Please.
I need you guys to explain to me how many wins is acceptable by the degrees of critique here, because I'm saying this dude has 6 wins. Now, granted, they might not come in fancy events, or maybe there's one is at a shadow leaderboard, whatever. But if you look at his mantelpiece, there are so many trophies over there. So what expectation do you have? Because I'm looking at Xander going, the guy's young. He's got 6 wins. He's got a whole bunch of golf in front of him. He swings it awesome, and he keeps growing as a player every time I see him.
Yeah, Mark, I think that's very fair. And 6 wins is great. All we're simply doing is addressing some past concerns, because we've seen him in the mix from time to time and not get it done. There are these moments where Xander seems to fall apart. And does that mean he's a less than player? No, but does it mean he's less than compared to his own expectations and the expectations that his talent presents? Quite possibly. And I think those are 2 very different things. We judge and analyze the career of Tiger Woods a lot differently than Scott Stallings, right? When Scott Stallings wins,
don't bring him into this. Don't do that.
It carries a different weight. Xander's a perennial Ryder Cup player. He's a perennial top 10 player in the world. He's a stud. And so you analyze what he does in final rounds, what he does in contention at a very different level than where you analyze a Scott Stallings. So I don't think that we're saying he's less than of a player. Of course, 6 wins is incredible, but there's the point of, it's relative to what you expect from him. It's relative to what he does week in and week out, and all that stuff is so good. It raises the expectation.
Well, he came out of that. Let's not forget, he came out of that class that included Spieth and Thomas and Grillo and all that superstars. What is that, 2011 they were named? And I want you to name all of them, because he admitted to me, he goes, in that class, he was not even known. He's like, he couldn't afford to go and play in the big AJGA events against all of the stars and stuff. And then he went to Long Beach State for a little while before he ended up at San Diego State. He was never a blue chip. And then eventually he sort of came around and kept building. And so if you look at Jordan, how many wins has he got? Well, what's
14?
14.
Yeah, 14.
JT's got what?
14, 15.
14. So I'm almost inclined to say that he's got half of the wins that these superstars had that he grew up alongside and came out with. So yeah, I hear the conversation, but we need to also tip our cap and go, dude, you are good. And you were the star that a bunch of didn't want to say carry the American Ryder Cup team, but he was one of the guys that did work that week over there at Whistling Straits. And he's going to be a large part of that mix in the future, as far as I'm concerned as well.
I think Xander's fine. I think sometimes and maybe this is our fault, and this is the Finau thing, right? Where he almost gets unfairly docked because he's in the mix so often. Xander's just constantly, he's top 10 in, I don't mean in tournaments. I mean, he's a top 10 player in the world. I mean, you could look up the weeks of how many times he's been, he's always in the top 10 in the world. And for a guy like that, you would expect a winning percentage of, I don't know, 5, 6, 7%, I think. And coming into today, depending on how you feel about the team win, but he had won, 4? Well, pull up the,
what do you want? His 133 PGA Tour events played? You want that one?
So he had won.
He'd won 5 out of 133.
5 out of 133, and then
four out of 130 something, right?
Essentially, he had won 3% of the time, which is not, to me, it's not commensurate with a top 10 player in the world. I mean, it's a good player, and so maybe he's unfairly docked because his statistics and his numbers and his finishes are so good. But if that's true, then I think the expectation is that you would be winning more. What were you going to say, Rick?
He also finishes inside the top 10 in 27% of his starts. So it is a gift and a curse. There's two things wrong with the way that we look at this. One, we weigh wins way more than they should. And also the Finau thing that you mentioned, Kyle, it's a gift and a curse when someone like my stupid mouth says oh, he doesn't win enough. It's well, I don't say that about Scott Stallings. I only say that about guys that I like. It's almost a compliment because of how great I think he is.
Help me real fast. How many wins does Jon Rahm have?
A lot more than Xander.
How many? On the PGA Tour?
I'll get you official PGA Tour wins here in a second.
It's not a lot. But Mark, I'll say we were critical. At least I was. He has 7. We were fairly critical of him earlier this year when he was playing so well and wasn't closing the deal and wasn't winning. And the point there is you only have this stretch of great play. It only lasts so long. And you lose an area of your game, the putter goes cold or something like that happens, and all of a sudden your chances of winning go down. And so you have to take advantage. You got to strike while the iron's hot. You got to win when your game is up for the challenge. So we're critical of guys like that, and we were very critical of Jon Rahm earlier this year, I would also say.
Okay, I'm going to read you a stat that this is why I think we're critical of Xander. And maybe you can, Jacob, maybe you can pull up this tweet. This is from, I'd have to go back and redo this because I did it at the end of January, and guys have won since then and whatever. But this is as of the end of January 2022. This was the top 10 in the world at the time, and their winning percentage on OWGR events. So OWGR events includes Xander's Tour Championship, but it doesn't include his Zurich Classic with Cantlay because that's not an OWGR event.
But it does include his Olympics.
It does include the Olympics. So, okay. This is winning percentage of top 10 players in the world at the time. This was January 30th or whatever. So this has changed, but these numbers right here are why we're critical of Cantlay. Or excuse me, well, maybe Cantlay too, but also Xander. Rahm wins 10% of the time. Morikawa wins 9% of the time. Cantlay wins 4.5%. DJ's at 8%. That's an unreal number over the course of 20 years. Hovland's at 8%. JT's at 7%. Xander down at, that dropped even further, but he was at 4%. So that was the lowest alongside Cantlay. Rory's at 8%. That's an unbelievable number that's actually gone up since then. Bryson at 6.5. Bryson's like not even top 30 in the world anymore now. And then Hideki at 6.5 as well. So I think these numbers right here are why criticism of both Cantlay and Xander is somewhat warranted based on their position in the top 10 in the world.
Okay, I just got to, I hear you, but I just want to highlight the fact that as you look through these names, Rahm, Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Rory, those are generational guys. So you got to remove them from that because they just play the game at a different clip. I'm going back to who Xander was as a young man. He wasn't the star. He was some guy coming up who was pretty good. And he is proving the fact that he's pretty good and he's becoming better and better. So yeah, the arguments and stuff, but he's still got six victories. And
but if you're
everyone should win more.
But if your talent is good, I think what I'm saying is if your talent is good enough to be top 10 in the world, which Xander's clearly is, then your winning percentage should be commensurate with that talent.
All right.
And I think Xander's gotten by on top, T8s and T9s and T6s. And I think it's fair to I mean, does Xander want us comparing him to his 18-year-old self or to the other top 10 players in the world, which is what he is? I think he would probably want the latter, which is sort of what we're doing right now. And it's why winning stuff like the Travelers is meaningful for him, is a big deal, I think, for the arc of his career.
6th PGA Tour victory for Xander Schauffele, 2 shots clear of JT Poston and Sahith Tagala. The latter there looked like this could have been his, Greg. Looked like he had a chance to capture that first career PGA Tour victory. Birdie 17, great putt. Makes double on 18. Little bit unlucky for his ball to end up where it was, but then you start to get the rumblings of questionable decision-making after that.
Yes. So a couple things on, say, Sahith. First of all, fantastic to watch. He is so fun to watch. He is... The mannerisms after he hits a golf ball are incredible. And they're so fun. There's no other word to explain it. So I love watching his reactions. I love watching all that. And his game is very good too. He nearly took the top spot of the Rookie of the Year race today. He very nearly did. A win goes a long way. And I think it probably would have put him ahead of Cam Young if it ended today. So this is really, really cool stuff we're talking about. On 18, there's a couple things you can question. One is the driver. Should he have hit driver off the tee with a 1-shot lead? I think driver's fine. But the second shot after that is just, it's reckless at that point.
Which, just for those who didn't see it, Greg, it was like 3 inches from the lip of the bunker. I mean, it was... He had very little to do. You think he should have just splashed it out the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. He absolutely should have splashed it out. And if you just take a second and think about it, now, at the end of the day, a par there doesn't guarantee anything. So that's why I'm okay with driver, because you're a 1-shot lead. You still need a birdie wins you the tournament. You make birdie and it's over. So what's my best chance to make birdie? Okay, driver. That's fine. There's plenty of room to hit driver. Xander hit driver. Everybody hits driver. A lot of players hit driver. So that's not the issue. But when you hit driver, now you have to have the ability to accept the consequences. And if you hit it into a place where you can't advance it to the green, you have to take your best option. You have to take your next best option. And this was not his next best option. I mean, he could hit himself. He could have left it in his own divot. This could have been way worse. He was lucky to have a putt for bogey, quite frankly. And that's concerning.
He takes a hack at it, Mark, and it moves, according to Shot Tracker, 4 inches. That's 4 inches backwards. Where he hit it, and now he's got to go through the whole conversation again of, well, now what? And then he ends up splashing it out. He actually hits a pretty good shot, as Greg alludes to. He gives himself a putt for bogey, and it's a devastating lip out from a great camera angle that we had. But man, things really start to spin fast in that moment, I can imagine.
They really did. Just to revisit the entire thing, because I was calling him. if memory serves me, it was about 320 over the top of that bunker down the left-hand side. And the entire day, he had hit drivers that were like head high, that had gone like 330-ish, but a lot of the stuff was along the ground. So I figure maybe he was just pulling drivers to take it over the top of that in the air downwind and just give himself a flip onto the green. He doesn't carry a 3 metal. He's got like a beefed up hybrid that is 16 degrees, he tells me, because he said he's never been able to hit a 3-wood. So he just doesn't even try. So he's got driver and just driving iron. And then when it was in there, I found it curious that his caddy, Carl, there was a leaderboard right behind them. I mean, as Carl was looking at Sahith, who was in the bunker looking at the lie, you could see over the fans from my vantage point, from where he was looking, and see the board. And you can see that, okay, I'm 1 ahead of Xander right now. And I couldn't hear all of the conversation, but I'm curious if it didn't happen, and forgive me, Carl, if it did, that he didn't just go, because at one stage he disagreed with a play. Mm-hmm. And go to Sahith, big guy, you 1 in front. You splash this thing out, you wedge it on the green to kind of where you do 10, 15 feet, and you give yourself a putt for 4. You just eliminate the disaster. And Sahith, the angle he had to launch this thing on, and what he had going for him was he was slightly on an upslope, but he was only a few inches from the lip of the bunker, and that thing would have had to launch at sharper than a 45-degree angle. But the problem was it was only 105 yards to the front. So I'm thinking, he's thinking, all right, big hard swing, lofted wedge off an upsloping lie, I can get this up, get it somewhere close to the green. And hindsight's 20/20. But through it all, I think he'll learn something from this, because like we were talking in break, and Felder was like, well, he shouldn't hit drive off the tee. And I was like, well, he doesn't have other options. And then I said to him, he just should have splashed it out like he said the first time. But that's not how he plays. He's creative. He hits balls head high. He's almost like an Indian Bubba Watson to me, the way he curves the ball through the air, and he loves curving it. And he just sees shots and hits them. And he believed he could. And so Carl stepped out of the way with a bag, and you could see Carl was like, oh, I'm not liking this. And the next thing he's playing from 4 inches behind where he was the second time. So it was all pretty rough, and I'm sure it's stinging right now, because he had a really legit shot to win this thing. And I would like to think that he will learn from this and not make the same mistake if he's in a similar situation down the track, because he was sort of in the play to win mindset the entire day, because he was chasing. And all of a sudden, with a birdie on 17, he's got the lead. Now, sometimes when you get the lead, you adopt a different mindset, where he didn't. And that's a skill. That's learning how to win. That's something that Xander Schauffele is sort of learning a little bit. David Duval took him ages. Mickelson took him forever to win major championships. So, yeah, it was horrid to watch. It was horrid to watch him sort of unfold a little bit. But in the end, kudos to him for hitting a gorgeous spinning wedge in there to about 10 feet to give himself a shot to make bogey. And to this moment, guys, I'm still absolutely gobsmacked that putt didn't go down for the bogey. But yeah, that's golf. That's what it is, and you love it, and it sucks all in one breath.
That putt and the camera angle that we had on it was perfect, and it was creeping back right at the lip, and hard lips out, KP. But Tagala's he's your 2020 Haskins winner. He's flashed on the PGA Tour already a couple of times. I mean, this is starting to become a little bit more of a trend. He is such a talented golfer, and you see it out there so often. It didn't work out for him here, and maybe he sleeps a little bit better because Xander ends up making birdie on 18 anyway. But man, this one felt like it was going to be his.
It did. He's tremendous. I think I was talking about this on HQ. I think maybe there wasn't as much attention paid to him coming out of school because he was in that weird COVID time, and he just sort of, I mean, everybody who came out to the Korn Ferry PGA Tour just sort of sneaked out there and showed up, and we're like, oh yeah, we were talking about just a ton of other things other than, hey, who are the young guys that are kind of coming out here? And so in that sense, it's like it felt like at Phoenix, if you weren't paying attention when, like during COVID, it was a little bit like, wait, who's this guy again? And then you start doing the research on it, you're like, oh, he was awesome in college. Like he was really like the pedigree is immense. And I think what's interesting, I mean, the putt on 18 was heartbreaking, but I think what is interesting about Theegala is, and maybe I'm the only nerd who cares about this, I think he's made the PGA Tour Rookie of the Year race super interesting because you got Cam Young, you got Davis Riley, you got Mito Pereira, and you've got Theegala as kind of your top. Oh, here we go. And then Chad Ramey's the only one out of those guys that's won.
That's right.
But I think that again, I might be the only one that cares about it. Although I think if you look back on Rookies of the Year, you can kind of project out you kind of know what you're getting from those guys in terms of a career. But he's played his way into that conversation with this performance. T5 at Memorial, almost wins Phoenix, and I'm excited to see kind of where that goes the rest of this year and beyond.
Well, let's roll that young gun conversation forward. Although I will say I watch a lot of golf, and like 3 times a year I will actually exclaim something at the television. That putt not dropping on 18 was one of the 3 times this year I think it got me to actually yell at a television.
I did as well. I yelped. I never do that. Like I think people think like, oh, it'd be crazy to like watch golf with you guys, and I'm like, no, it's actually, I'm like researching and like writing. It's very boring. It's very not fun. That was one of the times when it would have been exciting and fun.
How about this here, Greg? Michael Thorbjornsen contends, right? We almost get an amateur winning this golf tournament. He ends up finishing, I think he finished T6. No, 4th place by himself. My apologies, Michael. And then you've got Pearson Coody, who goes out and wins on the Korn Ferry Tour, living in Open, shot a 28 on his front 9. And also, as we learned this week, turned down an offer from the guys over at LIV. I mean, here we go again. Another young crop of potential stars. And I think that this is where the LIV and the PGA Tour stuff becomes very blurred for me. You know, how is LIV going to create their own stars? Are the young guys going to stay here? Are they going to build? This is such a phenomenal subplot to all this stuff that we've been talking about.
Here's the thing about young guys in the game of golf. And this is different than any other sport. You can have young college stars in golf that amount to nothing. It happens in other sports too. That's not the part that's different. But you have to accomplish something that is that has some kind of connection to it. And if these players go over to the LIV Tour, their success is incredibly hard to measure. And so you don't really have a great understanding of who or
context.
What they are. There's no context. That's a great word for it. So you don't really know unless they're able to play in majors. And then can they get world golf ranking points to play in majors? Are they going to qualify for opens? These things all are very much in question. And then the other thing is that they develop through the developmental tour. That's the Korn Ferry Tour. And I heard Tom Lehman talk about this, who played at the time it was the Nike Tour when he played, and he said that this teaches you toughness. The difference in pay on the minor league, the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour, is what makes it so developmentally effective, because you have to play for your livelihood. If you fail, your career ends, and there's that line is you're not going to be a career Korn Ferry Tour player. You're getting closer to being able to do that now. But when Tom Lehman was playing, I got to win. It's not even I can come in. If I come in 10th place, I'm going to walk away with $1,000 and I'm going to lose money for the week. If I win, I can actually make a little bit, and then I'll get closer to the PGA Tour. And so playing under that kind of pressure is very different than having a guaranteed contract and going to play for LIV. Although it's life-changing, it's really hard to determine if that's a star. The star is not made in college in golf. It's very rare that a Jordan Spieth comes along and is a star in their amateur life, and that transfers into professional golf. The stars are really made on the PGA Tour. They're made in that scene, and where they come from doesn't really matter it doesn't matter the same as it does in college football, where we know, okay, he played at Alabama. Okay, he played basketball at Duke. We know those things. We're less familiar with it in golf, and I think as a result, it matters less.
I tweeted something out after Cootie won, and I only like halfway believe it, but I put it out there anyway.
Okay, good.
And the thing that I put out there is that the tour, and I think people have been, I mean, I've heard a little bit of everything over the last couple of weeks, but I think people are critical because we are not critical enough of the tour, which I think is kind of, I don't know. I have been critical of the tour, and I think we all have at times. But this is what I put out there. The tour has to figure out how to not box out the Will Zalatoris's and Pearson Cooties of the world. I mean, think about this in terms of other sports. And this is what I put out there. If John Morant was like lighting up the G League, but there was no way for him to get called up to the NBA until the following year, and even then it would be sort of spotty when you would see him and when he would play. It just is not. I mean, people get excited about young talent, about future stars, right? And so when you've got these college guys coming out, or even younger, you think about an Akshay Bhatia, people get excited about that. They want to see that. And the tour just has not done a good job of sort of building that pipeline, and they're kind of piecing it together right now because they're being forced to, but it's in flux. I mean, Eugenio Shakara from Oklahoma State, number 2 amateur in the world, he signs with LIV. And this is, we don't need to get like too deep into this because we could be arguing about it for hours, but part of the reason for that, I have to think, is because the path to the PGA Tour is extraordinarily difficult. And that's one thing that's beautiful about it and great about it, the meritocracy of it. But as a business model and as something that excites fans, I don't know, man. I want to see Pearson Cootie play on the PGA Tour over the next 3 or 4 months, and that's probably not going to happen.
Well, I think it will, but that's the thing about the game is you don't have to have a card to play in the event. And so that's why you look at the official World Golf Rankings, and Rory McIlroy and John Rahm and Colin Morikawa, all of those guys who are 2 of the top 3 of the top 4 players in the world, they didn't play on the Korn Ferry Tour. Jordan Spieth didn't. Bryson DeChambeau didn't. Victor Hovland played in Korn Ferry Tour finals, but he was very close. Matthew Wolff, I know, ironically, he's gone to LIV now, but he didn't play Korn Ferry Tour. He got right to the PGA Tour. So there's a pathway. It's just a very narrow one. And so these young stars that come out aren't coming out every single year. They're, to use the term Mark used earlier, they're near generational talents. And it's very difficult to accomplish that goal. But at the same time, it's never given to you. You're not handed a chance. Well, maybe you are you earn it to some degree, but a sponsor's exemption in a way is it's handed out by someone. There happens to be, for the most part, a reason for it. But when you get that chance, you can take advantage of it, and you can qualify for the PGA Tour in the next year without playing the Korn Ferry Tour. So I think it's a much more rare feat in golf, which I view as a good thing.
What's the path for Pearson Cootie to get on the PGA Tour this year? And think about that compared to, think about if Memphis was forced to stash John Morant in the G League until the next year. So
Pearson Cootie can do what
top 25 is in on the money list.
To get on this year, he's got to win 2 more times.
Right. He can do that just like Mito Pereira did last year. It's called a battlefield promotion.
Right.
And you can get on in the middle of the season.
And I'm pretty certain he's going to get some sponsors' invitations. You're entitled up to 7 of them. I wouldn't be surprised if if he doesn't show up at the John Deere Classic next week. And then it's up to him to decide, okay, do I try and play more Korn Ferries and win there, or do I go and try my hand on the PGA Tour? And that's part of the conundrum. And that's, again, some of the, in my opinion, to build on what Greg's saying, the beauty of it all. And
I don't think having to make that decision is. I think it's dumb.
Shouldn't the tour have what the equivalent of sponsors exemptions are?
What do you mean?
What?
So okay. Next week is John Deere. And we've got however many spots left for sponsors exemptions and whatnot. Why can't the PGA Tour hand out a sponsors exemption to Pearson Coody?
Yeah, and you shouldn't have. I mean, having to decide between playing Corn Ferry events and tour events, as like your path to get to the PGA Tour is I'm sorry, it's kind of asinine.
We had Brandon Wu on the pod during COVID, and he was like, I'm going to skip PGA Tour events because I'm so close to guaranteeing my card. I can't miss those Corn Ferry weeks. I would have to finish like 7th or better on the PGA Tour for this to matter. I'd rather secure my spot now.
And the tour is disincentivizing its future stars from playing on the tour currently, which is, I'm sorry, that's not smart. Like, that is not a smart thing.
Well, one thing that they should probably consider is making points on, and I think they did this in majors, but making points on the PGA Tour, if you play there, somehow apply to the Corn Ferry Tour standings. Not that you get there's a way to do that. I don't know what it is, but you should be able to reap the benefit on.
Yes.
Right. And if you did that, I think it would help that problem. But I think these guys want to play they want to play the PGA Tour. And if you feel like top 7 is a realistic, you're at a point where that's very realistic for you, as Pearson Coody might feel right now, then you should do it. And it's a life-changing opportunity.
At the risk of getting mixed up in the weeds a little bit over here, I want to recognize what Pearson Coody's just done. What was it, a month ago? They win the national championship, Texas, right? He's leading the PGA Tour University standings, so he gets the Corn Ferry Tour exemptions. He goes out there and in his third go has a victory. Could they create a way for guys to get on the tour a lot easier? Absolutely. Wouldn't that be great? But it's, people might say the tour is slow to operate or whatever, but this is sort of how it's ran over the last little while. And my cap is tipped to this Pearson Coody. My goodness gracious. What to win your third professional attempt? That is unreal. Granted, it's on the Corn Ferry Tour. And let's just laud that achievement for a little while and then let the chips sort of fall where they may, because Tiger Woods had to use his 7 stars to earn his tour card. Phil Mickelson, all of them. And that's sort of how it's went. And that's why if they were mentoring young Pearson Coody, they'd probably go, make smart decisions, play good golf. Let's hope stuff works out for you. It's just sort of how it is. And I hate to sound crass like that, but it's the rules of engagement right now. And when you sign up for it, And Chikara went the other way. But I could have told you would have, because he's buddies with Sergio Garcia. And when he was a candidate for my Palmer Cup team a few years ago, the verdict was out on him. So I just commend Pearson Coody. I'm being long-winded. I'm sorry.
At what point does that become a problem?
It is a problem.
But it's like Pearson Coody has done something now this week that we all recognize as greatness. And we're not familiar with stars in the college game the way now. Let's say Pearson Coody won a PGA Tour event this week, like Michael had a chance to do. Michael Thorbjornsen earlier had a chance to win. Now all of a sudden, exactly he becomes a star in that moment, but he's not a star as a sophomore at Stanford in the eyes of the game. So in a way, you go to LIV, and in a way you almost disappear from stardom. So I find it very difficult to reason, and I think context, Kyle, is the real word here. It's really hard to find context, but when you've made it through the rungs of golf here in America and you arrive on tour and you do something that's worthy of stardom, that's how stars are made. They're not born. We just realize it one day, and I think that's pretty cool.
All right. I'm gonna pause this there.
We could go like 3 hours on
and
this.
we've got another live week coming up next week, and it's gonna be a whole thing. So we're gonna roll on. We've got to get over our best bets, and we've got to talk about the massive move that has been made in the one and done. But first, we're gonna take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. Patrick Cantlay should be thanking the LIV golf amateur, all that conversation, because he had himself quite a day in the wrong direction and we didn't even spend any oxygen on it. Best bets. Let's see. Mark. Ooh,
I'm embarrassed. Don't even show it. I'm embarrassed at that call. I mean, that was just dumb. That's dumbness.
I'll make it quick. Sam Burns over Xander Schauffele. Sam Burns missed the cut. Xander Schauffele, last time I checked, won the golf tournament.
Cool. Moving along.
Moving along, Kyle, Davis Riley over Mark Leishman and KH Lee. Riley, last I checked, was, I don't know, top 10 in the field in ball striking and giving it all back via the putter. I don't know how he actually ended, but it seems like a very frustrating statistical week for Davis Riley. Yeah,
he finished T64 and he was, I've got it right here. Yeah, he was plus in from tee to green and minus, extreme minus with the putter. So yeah, that's kind of
nearly 8. Lost nearly 8
strokes with the putter. That's worse than Luke List, I think. And Luke List missed like 3-4 footers.
That's unlike him.
KH Lee, on the other hand, had Davis Riley hit the ball so much better than KH Lee and did not score, and then Leishman missed the putt. So it didn't work out, but I don't regret I stand by the bet.
The coach captured victory plus 140 with Keegan Bradley to finish inside the top 20. Keegan finished just inside the top 20. T19, 9 under par to cash that for the coach. Okay, gents, one and done time. Jacob, please present us with said board. Sia Nejad went with Patrick Cantlay, and the Sia Mush Greg took till Sunday to come out because Cantlay was one shot off the lead. He was rocking and rolling. This could have been $1 million payday. Instead, he drops all the way down to T13 with a 76.
It's so disappointing. He looked so good, and this last round was just inexplicable. Like, I mean, if he goes out and shoots 70 or 71, I get it, but he shot 76. He on number 8, it nearly didn't make it to the water. I mean, it barely carried in the water. It's just, it was so characteristic of Patrick.
That was unbelievable.
It was I was shocked.
That's worse than like when Scotty Shanks won greenside, because Cantlay, he puts it on a tee. It's a perfect lot. That he missed it by 100 yards, and the shot was like 130.
It looked like an optical illusion. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a guy that won the FedEx Cup last year, right? Just shot 63 yesterday. Probably a better example. A guy shot 63 yesterday, chunks it into the water like that. I mean, it was hard to imagine. So he didn't get up and down once. He was 0 for 8 and scrambling. That's just so unlike him. So Sia is definitely to blame for that. Poor Patrick.
For what it's worth, the rumor among our spotters on the golf course was saying that he wasn't feeling very well today. He was kind of coughing and sort of was struggling physically. Now that's not an excuse for that 8-iron he hit on number 8 today or whatever it was, but apparently he didn't look like he was feeling very well throughout.
Well, that's a better explanation than any I have. So I mean,
I might be out on Cantlay. Speaking of rumors in Cantlay, did you see his interview early in the week, Rick?
No,
or his press conference?
No, I don't have anything like that outstanding. Or actually, no, I don't have anything like that.
So I'll read it word for word.
Outstanding.
Has LIV made you an offer, and do you have any interest in it? So the right answer, if it's no, is just no, right? The answer that leads to other answers in the future is as follows. My team handles all that kind of stuff. which is just
And apparently his team doesn't talk to him.
complete abdication of responsibility. My team handles all that kind of stuff, whether it just be any of the sponsors that I have or anything in that department. I haven't had any direct contact with them recently. Interesting choice of words. So I really, I don't have anything like that outstanding.
Does the transcripts have like the 12-second pause that he threw in there at some point?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Is that like you haven't checked your email is still on red, or like what is the outstanding part there? That was not great. That was not a great look. If you're trying to, if you want like. If you think Patrick Cantlay is going to stay on the PGA Tour in the future, that answer is not encouraging.
No, it's so easy to quell the rumor. Colin Morikawa did it over Twitter. You just have to say no, right? I'm not going. When you do that, which Kyle so eloquently read, more eloquently than Patrick said, it just leads to more rumors. But the reason for that is because they don't know, or they do know and they don't want to tell you, one or the other.
And to be fair to him, it's a better answer than Brooks like lighting people up when he. But it does lead me to believe that there's something there with Cantlay, right? Like that's the sort of outcome when you give an answer like that, which is fine. But it seems like there's some smoke there.
KP. Seamus Power, 58,556. Lucky for you, Sia Dejad remains our punching bag, because if it were not for him, it would be you.
Yeah, thank God for Sia. That Seamus was up to, I think it was T9 as recently as yesterday afternoon, and he just completely fell apart. So again, I don't really regret the pick. I think it was a good pick for where I was at and what he was doing, but he just let me down on Saturday, Sunday.
And I'm thankful for both you and Sia, because I am just barely above both of you. Davis Riley, 17,845. We already talked about him struggling on the weekend. Greg. The only goose egg out there, my friend, and it's for you. $0 from one Denny McCarthy.
Yep. I didn't see it going this way.
I hope not.
It also may have been slightly... This is just all on me. I really thought he was going to have a good week, but I just kind of threw it. I just kind of threw it out there, and I could have put a little more thought into it. Would I have had Xander? No, I already played him. Could I have played Thigala? I wouldn't have. So look, I don't know how much better I would have done. I liked KH Lee this week. Well, it would have been better, but still not great. So I think I was just a little bit off of it this week, just near the top of the board.
Jacob, $148,708 from Tony Finau. That's the same group of T13 that Patrick Cantlay was in.
Yeah, super disappointing. I mean, I thought we were going to find a little magic in the bottle with Tony Finau, because he'd started to post some good results, but I mean, I guess it just didn't happen. And I will say, talking about Cantlay's response to LIV, we were just babysitting a 7-year-old over the weekend, and that was pretty much his response to any time you'd ask him if he washed his hands after the bathroom. He's just like, you're just like, did you wash your hands? I can't confirm or deny that I did wash my hands. Like, by the time we finished,
my team handles that.
Yeah,
my team handles that. And we're like, we didn't hear any water running, and he's just like, I don't know what to tell you. I washed my hands.
Yeah. The same response I give my wife when she checks the bank account and it's like a purchase from TaylorMade. And I'm like, I don't know. Don't know anything like that.
No free ads. No free ads, Rick.
Yeah, it's a mistake either way.
Who's our current sponsor of the show? Coach went with Keegan Bradley, 98,355. But the big winners, and they've been buzzing. They've been buzzing in the chat.
Fans can pound sand.
With a full $1.494 million, selecting Xander Schauffele, who Coach Bello laughed at. He gave it the big full gut chuckle when that pick was revealed. The fans went with Xander Schauffele and got the winners share. And now, Mark, you had Davis Riley 17,845. Now the fans, when you look in the rearview mirror, are your closest competitor.
Yeah, and they're a daunting prospect right now, to be honest with you, because they've got a pretty full stash of players left as we line up the rest of the season. But it's just time for me to put this behind me and make a few good picks coming up, especially at the Open. I may pivot. I'll sort of watch how they go over the next bit. But thankfully, I've got two guys who play the old course pretty well that I might sort of slot in there, guys I'd been saving for the playoffs. So we'll go week by week, but it's time to bounce back from the Riley thing for me.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9 events left. We don't do the opposite field events, right? We don't do Barbasol or
we didn't do them last year.
Barracuda.
But Barbasol is an opposite field now, is it? That's a real that's a full event.
It's opposite of the Scottish.
All right, go. Forgive me. All right.
And Barracuda is opposite of the Open. So we've
Jacob,
got.
What's the rule?
Say again. What's the rule, Jacob? What did we do last year?
No opposites. No opposite fields.
I
We're
think
playing the Scottish. The Scottish is on the table though this year. So
Yeah.
we're strategic alliance.
Yeah, so it's John Deere, Scottish, Open, 3M, Rocket Mortgage, Wyndham, St. Jude, BMW, Tour Championship.
Can we talk about Matthew Wolff?
What would you like to say about
him? I think
that's enough.
I think he's one of the ones where it's both unsurprising but also kind of jarring to think about a 22-year-old with that talent and those major I get that he's been just garbage for the last 2 years, but top 5 at the PGA, top 5 at the 2020 US Open, and to think about him going, you're like, man, it's unsurprising because I think you tweeted, I think you reported this, Rick, like you were hearing a lot of stuff around him. That's what a lot of people had been saying, but it's also a little bit surprising is the wrong word, jarring, disconcerting, whatever, that it's not a 48-year-old Lee Westwood past his prime. It's a 22-year-old Matthew Wolff who has shown top 10 type talent that is like, I'm out on the PGA Tour. And now LIV has, this is a random stat, but 4 of the top 7 from the 2020 US Open, Oosthuizen, Bryson, Wolff, and DJ all finished in the top 7 at that US Open. That's a major that was not that long ago. And LIV has just rated that, that level of player. And I don't know. I think that's continues to be problematic for the PGA Tour.
Yeah, so the Matthew Wolff rumblings, Greg, have been going on for a while. There's kind of just this expectation that probably tomorrow, Monday or Tuesday, that'll become official and he'll play in Portland. So we're just kind of waiting on the official news there. But this is, it's kind of strange. We don't often get to compare golf to other sports, and this feels like a change of scenery thing, right? Like sometimes guys just need a change of scenery. And Matthew Wolff has been very open about his, mental struggles and how difficult it's been for him on the PGA Tour. And I don't know if this is the answer for him, but I think he's much more willing to try something new than maybe a lot of other guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of the mental health stuff and a lot of the other things that happen off the golf course have affected Matthew Wolff greatly on the golf course. And it can lead you to a place where you're not making sound decisions, or you're not making clear decisions, or you're just thinking about things differently than maybe he would have when he first came out of college. So I think a lot's changed in his life. I don't know what exactly it is, but I'm not surprised at all that he's decided to go. And the game feels like you were saying about Lexi earlier, Kyle. Is there a lot of joy there? Well, Matthew Wolff's been very vocal about it, and there's not a lot of joy there. So for this year, it'll be 7 events for him. Next year, it'll go up to 14. And he probably is very fond of the guarantee. And I get why he is as volatile as he is, and he's been struggling with his game. So he, in a way, fits the mold, but with his youth, it's what doesn't fit the mold. So yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing, but understandable.
Problem or not a problem? Is Matthew Wolff a problem or not a problem for the PGA Tour that he's leaving?
I think it starts a problem.
It's a problem.
I think it starts a problem. I don't think Matthew Wolff individually leaving is a problem, but my worry and fear is that players in his age group start to follow that are established on tour already, and that's when it becomes a really big problem.
I'm with you, Greg. I just my 5 cents worth, which is about that, is it's disappointing for me because just 3 short years ago, I think it was, he was the star coming out of college. I mean, he was the guy everyone was paying attention to. It wasn't Hovland. Certainly wasn't Morikawa. He was like the 3rd ranked one of the bunch, according to all of the pundits. And Matthew was the guy with the swagger, the swing. He had companies falling over themselves to get to him. Then, of course, he wins quickly, and the world is his oyster. And just a few short years later, he's not competing with those 2 guys at all, let alone his peers on the tour. And he goes and signs with a league for guaranteed money. And doing that sort of says to me that this is a guy that probably doesn't seem like he believes a whole lot in what his current skill set is or where he might be mentally. So it's sort of sad for me if I look at it from that point of view.
More of a problem, Rick, Eugenio Chacarra, the number 2 amateur in the world, or Matthew Wolff going to, which, by the way, the LIV is becoming like the Oklahoma State Super Tour with all these OSU guys going over.
Yeah, the answer realistically is if you get the number 2 amateur, that's more problematic than what Matthew Wolff has done. But this is not a play to build the deepest, best tour in golf necessarily. So I actually think that LIV, picking off more popular players than great players works for them. So like, I think the real answer should be if you get the number 2 amateur in the world, you've stolen one. But I don't think it will matter to golf fans at all.
The amateur, the Chacarra one. Yeah,
I agree completely with Rick.
I think the problem is because I'm with Greg. You can't become a star without context, right? You can't. Eugenio Chacarra is a name to us because we watch the NCAAs and whatever, but no, like we're in the 1% or 99%, however you say that, of golf fans. Like that's not most people, right? And so you can't become a star just by shooting 65s at Pumpkin Ridge because I don't know what the hell that means. I have no idea what it means to win a tournament at Pumpkin Ridge against Richard Bland and your boy Henny. Mark, how do you say his last name?
Duplessis.
I don't know what that means. Now, the thing is, if LIV gets 10 of those guys and one of them gets into the Open Championship and wins the Open Championship, like if they would have gotten, for example, a Will Zalatoris who can get into these majors in different ways by getting OWGR points on the Asian Tour or by qualifying for the U.S. Open or whatever, and that person goes on, and that's a long shot to be able to do that, but that person goes on to contend in or win a major championship, then all of a sudden you've taken 10 rips at amateurs and one of them is hit and has become a Zalatoris type, then you have a star that you didn't even have to make. The majors made him, right? And that's why when we talk about the link between the majors and LIV, it becomes extraordinarily important for LIV's future, not just because more guys will go over, but because you get stars made by the Masters and by the PGA Championships that you don't even have to make. And then all of a sudden they're also playing your tour, so they're stars over there. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit their philosophy is take 10 or 15 rips at amateurs, and if one of them hits in a big way at the majors, then all of a sudden all that money was worth it.
Won't be the last words we speak about LIV this week. Carlos Ortiz also en route to finish off that Portland field.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did that just come out?
That's speculated, but yeah. So Sports Illustrated and the Telegraph within the last hour or so are confirming Chikara, Wolf, and Ortiz as those last 3 spots in Portland.
Something I want to point out: Garcia, Bryson, Chikara, Abraham Ancer, Carlos Ortiz. A lot of these guys are all represented by the same agency, GSE. And when we were in Mexico, I was talking with one of their agents, and he was like, "They're going, Mark. They're going." And I was like, "What about the President's Cup?" And he goes, "Come on, man, they're going." Now Neiman is hanging on, and there's a few of the other guys hanging on too. So I don't know. We're going to see defections and stuff as it goes along, and you just got to kind of. It is what it is, as Tiger Woods would say.
It is what it is. And this is the First Cut podcast, and we are going to put a pin in it for right now. Gentlemen, fun as always. We'll be back next week, Monday, DFS preview, Tuesday, mega preview, Wednesday, betting, round by round recaps, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all the usual good stuff coming to your feeds. But for now, big thanks to producer Jacob doing all the hard work behind the scenes. Jacob, also, someone was very upset, and they said to me, "Why don't you ever give out producer Jacob's Twitter handle? I want to follow him." And this is the moment I'm going to change that. So Jacob is available at Jacob_Hallex. There you go, Jacob. Greg DuCharme is available at The Real GFD. Mark Immelman at Mark_Immelman. Kyle Porter is available at Kyle Porter CBS. And you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been the First Cut. We'll catch you next time.